Have you ever wondered how you can add your personal touch to the gifting season? Welcome, accomplices. I'm Lynda Norman. I'm a watercolor artist in the beautiful province of British Columbia. Today we're going to look at how we can add a personal touch to some gifting ideas. Gift tags, ornaments, small things that make all the difference in the world. So the gifting season is upon us. It's actually, for creators, a lot of times that starts very early on in the year as we prepare for craft shows and art shows and seasonal themed shows and exhibits and sales. And I think it's just always fun to create some small bits of our expression of thanks when we're giving. And some of the ways I do that is through small ornaments. I do them on little wooden discs that I buy online, and they come in different sizes and different shapes. These are kind of fun. Some of them are in the shape of trees. These don't have holes in them, so I will punch a hole in those. These little fellows here are actually from a pack I bought online that are made for to make your own wooden jewelry. But I think they would make really cute little tree ornaments. And one of the things that I like to do is to personalize them. Is I paint on them, but I also paint the back. And if you wanted to use to allow people or give people the option actually to use it as a gift tag, and then once they've gifted it, that person can use it as a tree ornament, you can put to and from on the back, attach that to your gift, and then when they've opened their gift, they can hang it on their tree or set it on their mantle or whatever. So these are winter Christmassy themes. You could turn these into anything, any seasonal thing. Spring, birthdays. I did some with just hand drawings of wrapped gifts on them. You could do Easter, Thanksgiving, put a turkey on them, or some fall colors and maple leaves and that kind of thing. But they're really, really fun to do. Some of them I paint, and these are birch trees and little winter scenes. I'll show you those in just a minute. We'll paint those. And these I do by hand, and I don't spend a lot of time with these in my studio. I keep them on a table beside my chair in the evenings, so when I'm relaxing I can use my little micron pens and sometimes a bit of charcoal, and I just doodle. I create little gnomes. One of my daughters is a real gnome fanatic, and so I like to do those, or just Christmassy themed designs. And here again are the little cards of watercolor paper that I just like to cut and fold. I picked up this little handy corner cutter, so it's a nice way to finish off these little guys in paper. This one has 3 different options in the back. For these I like the more longer round curved, and so I just turn them so I can see what I'm doing in the back part here. And you have a nice lovely little rounded corner. You can hole punch the other corner if you wanted to attach it to your gift with a ribbon. This is going to be tough because it's watercolor paper. And there you have a beautiful little personalized touch to your gifting. This is done with micron pen, a little bit of charcoal, or even sometimes even just a regular lead pencil will work. And if you take one of these little, I'm gonna get the name wrong, torchons. They're basically rolled paper, rolled very tight. And if you go in and burnish your pencil or your charcoal, you can buff it out to make different gradients of the color. And so they're fun. They're just fun to do. Simple little doodles. They're small, so you don't have to worry about getting into big production on on a larger scale. And these have all been treated afterwards, the ones that I've hand painted or drawn on. And I just spray them with a Camar varnish. Krylon has a Camar varnish that I use on everything I do. Watercolors, alcohol inks, wood, paper. I always give my finished product a treatment with the Camar varnish. It does help to hold the design, and if I want a different surface on it afterwards, there are other levels of varnish. This one is a clear matte, which I will use for watercolors. If you wanted your ornaments to be a little shinier, you could use a gloss. And Krylon, and I'm sure there's lots of other brands, but this is what we have locally here, most available. And they have low odor and various levels of gloss and sheen. So a great product. Always, even the low odors, you want to step outside and spray so that you're not breathing in the fumes. So those are some quick little ideas. So these I draw on the bare wood, and then I spray them afterwards. If I'm going to paint on them, I treat them first with a matte medium. So it's an acrylic matte medium, and it doesn't matter whether you use matte or gloss, or this is more of a liquid. I can pour it on and use this little paintbrush to put it on. Or you can use, there's a gel medium too. The gels tend to be a bit thicker and maybe would leave streaks and more of a texture with your brush on the surface. But I always treat anything that I'm going to do with watercolor on the wood, I treat it with that first, because there is acid in wood that can leach through and create havoc with your colors in your watercolor paints. So I treat them first. So these have all been treated. And once I've painted, then I would give them a couple of spray coats, just light coats. So I thought quickly we would do that. And I can show you just on this one here how easy this is to do. And it doesn't take long to dry. I just did these maybe half an hour ago. And they're really just quite easy and fun to do. So I'm just getting it all over the surface where I'm going to put paint. Okay. And often, if I've got time, I will let that sit. When it's dry, I'll flip it over, and then I'll do the other side. But I think this one I'll just lean up against something, stand it up a little bit. As you can see, I've been doing a lot of these. I'm running out of material. I have to go get some. I've got some gloss, and I will use that up. So just turn it to the light so you can see that you've covered all the surfaces. Because I do mostly, when I'm painting with watercolor on these little designs, I'm painting landscapey kind of things. So I like to keep my brush strokes going horizontal, just so that it keeps things sort of in that vein. And then I would just set that aside and let that dry, and then it's ready to be painted on. So I will just pop that over here. As I say, I buy these little wood shapes online, and they're not very costly, and they come in bags of sometimes 100, so they're really, really fun to have on hand. Just going to make sure that my brush isn't going to dry hard. If you let your acrylic gel, matte gel or liquid dry in your brush, you're going to have issues. It doesn't come out once it's dry. So make sure you clean your brush if you want to use it again. And then I treat them just like I would a piece of paper. So I'll just quickly give you an idea here of maybe a little birch tree. much smaller scale, of course, than what we're used to working on. The acrylic medium is very sticky. I find it that it's everywhere. So we'll just quickly have just some tree shapes coming up. They are pretty simple to do. And I love creating with the tape. I just finished 4 sessions with 16 participants at the Society for Learning and Retirement here in our city, and we just had so much fun with these birch trees and remembering to tear the tape so that you have a rough edge on both sides. Actually, I'm going to take that big guy off because he looks a little awkward because these are smaller pieces, and I'm just going to put this one on there. I don't care that it's hanging over the edge. That's probably quite okay. For these small pieces, I like to have my birch trees generally coming off the bottom of the surface or that I'm painting on, just because in order to get perspective and do all of that with them on this small scale is sometimes not going to be quite as easy. And we want this to be simple, I think. And so I think I'm going to use this little round brush from Lightwish. I'm actually quite enjoying this brush. I've mentioned before it's got a nice round belly. It holds lots of moisture, lots of pigment, and it's got a beautiful point on it. And I believe it's imitation squirrel. And it's a nice brush. One thing I also noticed in teaching classes recently is that many people purchase watercolor brushes because they're called watercolor brushes, but they're a little stiff and a little restricted for the way I like to paint. So I'm really pleased that I have found, my favorites, my solo brushes from Watercolor Online, and my Lebenson brushes, the beautiful handmade brushes by Tracy Lebenson, made with upcycled materials. And Tracy works with artists directly and understands their needs and works to make his products as beautiful and useful as he can for everyone. So he has brushes for watercolor, oil and acrylic, for potters. Just a beautiful line of brushes. So if you'd like to check those out, it's Tracy Lebenson brushes, lebensonbrushes.com, and we'll put a link into the information below as well. So I've got my tape on. First of all, I've got my acrylic on. It's dried. I've got my little bit of tape on, and I'm going to wet my surfaces. I've changed my palette a bit. I broke my large palette that I have all my Daniel Smith colors in, so this is kind of a mismatch of some Daniel Smith and some Rockwell colors, but they're kind of my favorites, so I'm happy with the smaller size here. And you'll see that the texture in these is kind of interesting. Because of the wood grain, of course, you get that different appearance. The paint flows a little bit differently, and quite beautiful. So I'm going to start with, I think, just the tiniest bit of quinacridone gold. It's a winter scene, but I think we want to have a little bit of the gold showing through. We're not going to use as much water on these as we would on paper. We just want to get the color on and move it around. Winter skies, I don't know, they can be all different colors. This is like an ultramarine, French ultramarine. We'll add a bit of that because it's nice and bright. For an ornament, sometimes it's nice to have that brightness. And I'm going to bring that right down into my quinacridone gold a little bit, just to get that variation happening in the sky. And I believe, let me just double check here, there's my undersea green. It's hard to tell with the light hitting the palette the way it is. And we'll just put a little bit of that, make it look like we've got some other tree shapes maybe in the background. I don't think we'll be able to make rocks the way we normally do with our little plastic tab on the wood, but in a small design like this, that's probably not necessary. And then I'm just going to put things just a tiny bit more. That's another thing I recognized when working with participants in my workshops. Everybody came with different brands of paints and different kinds of, some were in tubes, some were in pans already, some didn't know what the brand name was, some were gifted to them many, many years ago, so they were all different. But the common denominator I found was that it's easy to forget to keep your paints wet and juicy and ready to go. Then the tendency is, of course, to load your brush with a bunch of water and try to pick it up from your palette. And I just think it makes it so much easier on the artist. If your paints are juicy and ready to go, you're not having to dig around with your brush, which can be hard on your brush. And it just gives you that lovely load on your brush. So if your brush is damp, dried, so it's not dripping, you should just be able to go in and pick up. It's hard to see that color on this dark brush, but there is just a bit of color on there. And I'm just going to go in and tap it in just here and there in the foreground, just to show that there is some light happening in this wee little landscape. Okay. Now the colors in this are, I don't have my bright purples, but I've got one from Rockwell called Morai Witch, and we'll give that a little go. It's kind of a beautiful reddy purple, and I just want to add just the teeniest bit of that, just for some highlights. Oops, and there, we put it everywhere. And that's that, basically. You do still have to watch, with water flow and blooms and things happening. If that happens, make your brush as dry as possible, and you can feather out some of that excess water. This brush is a bit wet for that, but that's all right. That will be the design in the sky. It'll look a little bit like maybe a little bit of the Aurora Borealis happening in the background there. So by keeping the water to a minimum and just painting quickly, we can take off our tape pretty easily. It's not going to wreck anything as it would a paper if you took it off when the paper was wet. I'm just going to pick up that little bit. If I'd left the tape hanging off the end, of course, as I did with the first piece, it would have been much easier to grasp and take off, but we'll pull it off this way. One of the things that I learned through this last set of workshops, one of the ladies misunderstood and used a canvas to do birch paint tape off with the tape and the wash with some plastic wrap, and oh my gosh, that is something we will definitely be working with in the future. It was one of those things where, we don't make mistakes, we make unexpected outcomes, and it was brilliant. I just loved it. So that's something I'm going to be adding to our repertoire very soon. So here we have our little birch tree scene. And again, what we do is exactly what we do with our birch trees on paper. I'm just going to enhance. I think what I'm going to do, I don't know if you can see my palette here, I've got my palette dirt on the side. I'm just going to touch the tip of my brush in there because I don't want a lot of paint. I just want enough to be able to indicate the little marks on the side of the tree. And that's all you need. And that was another thing, you know, that I really stressed for most people in this last 4-week course as well, and with my other workshops, is developing that relationship with your paints, knowing how much water and pigment to use, when to adjust the water for the technique or for the result that you want to see on your surface, and that takes practice. And if you have to practice on student grade paper, then just keep in mind that when you graduate and allow yourself to work on 100% cotton, you're going to have different results. It's going to change. So if you can treat yourself to some 100% cotton paper, take a sheet and maybe divide it into smaller pieces and work on your techniques that way. And just, yeah, a little bit of practice here and there, and find the things that work for you and the things that you want to create. Start light. If that's not enough, then go back and get a bit more. I'm a quick painter, but you know, I do like to take the processes a little bit slowly sometimes. And I think for most it's having the confidence. Once you've done that practice and you've done it so many times, you know exactly what that brush is going to do with that pigment and that amount of water. So just keep at it. Last thing I'm going to do here is just with the quinacridone gold, and I think I've got probably too much on my brush. I'm just going to dab it off on the side of my palette there. Quinacridone gold is a strong color, and I can see a bit of a sheen on the surface of my palette, and that's all I'm touching my brush with. I don't want a full load of water. I just want a bit of that moisture to activate that little bit of quinacridone gold on my brush. So touching the water, touching in the very slightest bit of quinacridone gold on the palette. And a light touch. And we'll just we might want to do just a little bit of dark along the sides of these branches, just so that they're not disappearing into the sunset. You could always add a little bit of the purple that we'd talked about as well, just to make them a little bolder. I hesitate always to go in with new colors if I haven't already used them in the design. It's nice to keep everything sort of cohesive. And that was just one dab into that Morai Witch from Rockwell. And it's a cool name for a paint, eh? And it's just brightened that. I want a little bit more, but I don't want too much, so I'm just going to be very cautious with that. There. So once that is covered with a finishing coat of varnish or spray Kamar varnish, it's going to be beautiful and shiny. You could go in with a pen if you wanted to, draw a little bit of detail on the trees. Probably not necessary. I think you get the idea. And then for the back, sometimes with the back I like to add a little bit of the iridescence or other colors. But I think with this one, we'll just keep it with Well, let's do the Morai Witch, because we don't get to do that very often. I think it's kind of a pretty color. And I'm just the lightest coat, just to give it a bit of color. Whoop. You could probably use a hockey brush just to smooth off the color. And that's all I would do with that. You don't need a lot of solid color, but if you choose to make it more solid, by all means, you can do that. So that is the process for these little guys. They're just so fun to do, and like I say, you can do any shape you want. There's lots of craft stores, dollar stores, where you can get the little wire attachments. You could attach a string to it. Lots of different ways to present. Use your imagination. You know, some of these that have with the drawings on them, I have even taken little jewels. You can get these at any craft store, scrapbooking store, maybe sometimes even in an art store, and they're sticky backed, and you can just pop them on for a little glitz and glamour. Just a fun thing to do. So that, in a nutshell, is how I do my little wooden ornaments. They're just a lot of fun to do, a lot of fun to attach to a gift, gives it that personal appearance. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial example of adding personalization to your gifting ideas with watercolor, with pens, with bedazzling, all just different kinds of ideas that are really fun to do. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe to my channel, or visit my website, bandrystudio.com, or head on over to our members area. We'll have some fun things happening there soon.